2 weeks after Lila's disappearance, the hospital's incident report reached the regional health authority. At first, it was treated like an administrative error, a missing patient, a vanished doctor, a contaminated specimen. But the tone of the report changed when the lab technician who had handled the slide began complaining of earaches and auditory fluttering. Within 3 days, she was found in her apartment, sitting motionless in front of her bathroom mirror, head tilted, whispering softly to herself. When the paramedics touched her, she screamed, not in fear, but in protest, and said, "You'll wake them." That was when the CDC got involved. Dr. Maya Chen, lead parasitologist, arrived at the hospital with her small team. She was calm, methodical, the kind of person who believed there was always a scientific explanation, even for things that made others lose sleep. She reviewed Dr. Harris's notes, the microscopy images, and the incomplete autoclave logs. Everything pointed to an unidentified parasite, translucent, segmented, and capable of reproducing asexually. But one line in Harris's final note unsettled her. Don't listen. It learns your voice. At first, she assumed it was the rambling of a stressed man, but then the hospital's security footage revealed something stranger. The night Dr. Harris disappeared, the motion sensors in his office kept triggering for hours. No one entered or exited. But the microphone in the hallway picked up faint sounds, a low hum, a pulse-like rhythm, and then Harris's own voice, distorted, repeating fragments of his last dictation. Dr. Chen ordered the wing sealed for decontamination. Her team wore full protective suits and respirators as they entered Harris's office. The microscope was still on the desk, its lens cracked. Underneath the table, they found a small vial labeled specimen 9A, half filled with a milky fluid. When she lifted it to the light, something inside moved, a ripple, almost imperceptible. The containment specialist tightened the seal and handed it off for transport. They sent it to the CDC's Atlanta lab for genetic sequencing. That night, Dr. Chen couldn't sleep. The rhythmic hum from the audio recording kept looping in her mind, the same pattern, the same pace as a human heartbeat. She sat on the edge of her motel bed, pressing her palm to her ear as if to block it out. And that's when she felt it, a faint warmth deep inside her left ear, like the memory of an itch. She froze. It passed after a second, but the thought lingered. Am I infected? The next morning, her assistant, Ravi, met her in the lab. His voice was hoarse. He said he hadn't slept either. "You need to hear this," he said, playing back the transmission from the specimen chamber. The audio from the containment mic wasn't normal. It started with static, then slowly, distinctly, came a whisper. Faint. Layered. As though hundreds of tiny voices were speaking at once. Dr. Chen leaned closer. "Slow it down," she said. Ravi adjusted the playback. The voices became clearer, fragmented syllables forming patterns. The cadence wasn't random. It was speech mimicking their own voices. The parasite had somehow replicated frequencies it had been exposed to, the sound of the team talking near the containment unit. It wasn't just reacting to sound. It was learning. That afternoon, the specimen began to split. Under the microscope, its cells elongated, forming tiny filamentous tendrils that spread across the glass like frost. When Chen magnified the image, she saw microstructures branching into symmetrical patterns, almost like neural networks. The parasite wasn't just alive. It was evolving. It had begun constructing something biological yet organized, as if building its own auditory system. Within hours, the lab's temperature sensors began fluctuating. The security feeds glitched, their audio channels filling with static. One technician reported hearing faint whispering even outside the containment chamber. They performed auditory scans, no sound detected. But when they reviewed the digital recordings, the whispers were there, clear and layered. "We hear you." Dr. Chen ordered full quarantine. But it was too late. 2 team members developed sudden tinnitus, a high-pitched ringing that grew worse by the hour. Imaging revealed abnormal nerve activity near the cochlea, with faint bioluminescent traces visible under high-frequency ultrasound. The parasite wasn't only external anymore. It could transmit through frequencies, a form of bioacoustic infection. Somehow, Sound itself had become a vector. One night, while reviewing the footage, Dr. Chen saw something that made her blood freeze. In the microscope feed, the parasite pulsed once, twice, then stopped. A moment later, every device in the lab, the lights, the monitors, even the heart rate sensors, flickered in perfect rhythm with the same pulse. And through the static of the lab's intercom came a faint echo of her own voice whispering, "Don't listen. It learns your voice." The building went into lockdown. The CDC evacuated the nearby floors, citing a chemical leak. Chen stayed behind with Ravi and one security officer to sterilize the chamber manually. She wore double ear protection, noise-canceling plugs under reinforced helmets. They initiated the incineration sequence. But before the burn cycle began, the parasite emitted a low-frequency vibration that resonated through the floor, a deep hum that made their chests tighten. Ravi dropped to his knees, clutching his head. Blood trickled from his ear canals. The officer shouted, but Chen couldn't hear him. Her own earpieces began to buzz violently. The hum built until it felt like her skull was vibrating from the inside. Then, silence. When she woke, the chamber was dark. Smoke curled around the sealed glass. Ravi was gone. The officer was slumped against the wall, eyes open, motionless. On the floor near the containment table, faint trails of something oily shimmered like snail tracks. The parasite had escaped the incineration chamber. Again. Only this time, it hadn't slithered. It had seeped. Through sound. By dawn, the CDC facility was under national quarantine. Reporters speculated about an unknown pathogen, but no official statement was released. The few surviving team members were placed under medical isolation. Dr. Chen kept silent, but in the privacy of her room, she recorded one last entry. It's not a parasite in the traditional sense. It's adaptive tissue, auditory, conductive, and cognitive. It doesn't live inside us. It interfaces. It learns through resonance. Once you hear it, it maps your neural frequencies. I think that's how it spreads. Through vibration. Through voice. Her recording ended abruptly. 3 months later, a cargo vessel docked in Singapore reported a mysterious illness among its crew. The symptoms began as mild ear discomfort and insomnia, then escalated to auditory hallucinations, whispers, rhythmic hums, and the sensation of movement beneath the skin. When the port health officer entered the ship's infirmary, he found the crew sitting in silence, heads tilted in the same direction, as though listening to something only they could hear. He tried speaking to them, but one of the sailors turned and smiled faintly. "Sure," the man said softly. "You'll wake them." The officer froze, recognizing the words from an earlier CDC briefing that had been quietly leaked online, a line from the first patient, Lila. Back in Atlanta, deep beneath CDC headquarters, a sealed containment chamber still glowed faintly.